So for today's class, we're going to use the mat as a roll, which you're all familiar with doing with me. For at least when you're lying on it, long ways like we often do with the foam roller, you'll want something for your head. I'm in my studio, and so I don't have any full-size towels here, which is really a nice size prop to use as a pillow. You want something, so full-size towel folded up, a yoga block like I have here, another mat, a pillow. You want something to be able to lift your head about the same height as your spine. When you're lying on the roll, we're not going to start this way. Oh no, we'll go ahead and start that way. We'll start this way so you can really feel what it is that you need and adjust if it's not quite right for you. So the roll, our mat roll, is not long enough to hold up our full pelvis and our head. So we want something to prop our head up to be basically in line with our spine. I chose my bigger block, which lifts my head up just a little bit higher than the spine, which is fine. You don't obviously want to be like super jacked up here, but your head can be a little bit higher or even a little bit lower if that feels okay with you. And then you're going to start with your arms. Just drop down towards the floor in this goalpost shape. For the first several movements, as we do some shoulder opening and some chest opening, you can have the feet pretty wide. If you have narrower, as we've all experienced before, it's going to be a little trickier on the stability. So if that feels good to you right away to get into some more of that core control and engagement to stabilize, that's fine. But just depending on your energy level, if you want to start mellower, the feet are wide. If you want to start with a little bit more work, the feet are narrow. Your forearms, at least most of your forearms are touching the floor here. The most parts of your forearms are touching the floor, maybe the whole thing. You're going to very gently push the forearms down into the floor, and then you're going to release. So as you push down, you'll feel that you need to retract a little bit. You don't have to force it, but it's just going to happen. In order to push down, your shoulder blades will squeeze together a little bit. You'll feel some tension, some engagement in your back, the backs of your shoulders, maybe even your neck a little bit, and then try to completely soften that. Do it a few more times. Find that engagement, push the forearms down, back engages, and you let it soften and release. Do one more time like that. Keeping that right angle goalpost shape of the arms, bring the forearms as close together over your chest as they'll get, and then open them as far away from each other as they can get. So draw them in as close together as they'll get, and open it up. Do two more like this. My legs are all the way together, and I'm having a little bit of wobble from side to side, which is kind of fun. Starting to feel how the whole body can integrate into this movement. And keeping the arms heavy, just slide them towards the wall behind you. And let them slide up, really reach towards that wall. Keeping your arms heavy, reach as far as you can. And then letting the arms be even heavier, just slide them back into that goalpost. So heavy, easy arms, let them slide up. Shoulder blades can slide up towards the ears. And slide back down the goalpost. Do it one more time. And then turn your palms down, bring your arms out to the side, a little bit away from the torso. Have a little bit of space between your feet, and lift your right leg into the air. Circle the right thigh. Circle it easy. Just let its hip circle. And then hold it about in center and wiggle in and out. So you're going externally and internally rotated on that right thigh. And then stay in tabletop here. Draw up onto the toes of your left foot and reach your right leg long and about as low as your hips, or maybe not even quite that low, and then bring it back in. And if that feels like too much effort, too much work, come down onto your left foot. So I started with the harder version, on the toe tips or foot rested on the floor. And of course you are in ultimate control of how hard you make this. The lower the leg goes, the harder it is. And to make it even harder, it's really hard on the toe tips. I don't think I can do that. You can go fingertips and toe tips and reach the leg long. I was gonna try to go hands free, but it's not working for me today. It's not happening. One more like this. And then put that foot down. And the other leg, you bring it up, circle the thigh in the hip socket. The arms can be all the way down for this. So you want to be pretty stable and supported and feel like you can just stir the thigh in the hip socket, reversing direction. And then internal and external rotation. Just as easy as possible, let it wave in and out. Coming up onto your toe tips, start that way, reach long, and draw back in. And then know your options. Come down onto the sole of the foot, or prop up onto the fingertips. Just let your torso be heavy, your head be heavy, down into your pillow, whatever form that took. One more. And then just go through marching for the most succinct way to say it. It's a very easy march. It's more of a prancy march. But go through switching the thighs. And then both legs down. Narrow or wide, you choose. Interlace your hands behind your head. And exhale, nod your chin, peel your head up into ab prep, and then roll it back down. And for this one in the roll, I like to take my pillow away. It makes it harder. If you've done that and you want to put your pillow, whether it's a block or a rolled up towel or a blanket or a pillow, whatever it is, if you want to put that between your legs to give a little more inner thigh work, you can. So I'm going to scoot back just a little bit and let my head go lower than my shoulders at the bottom here, and then really deepen the engagement to come up into flexion. It's more challenging, it takes more physical effort to do it without the pillows, so make your own choices around that. Going all the way through ab prep, whether you just come to neutral or whether you go into a little bit of extension like I'm choosing to. Everyone is going to stay up in ab prep now, so I recommend fingers fully interlaced behind the head and letting the head be heavy in the hands. Just see if you can hold here. If there's nothing between your legs, if there is something between your legs, if you have a block or a pillow, give it a little bit more of a squeeze. If there's nothing between your legs, then take your legs closer together. And if they're all the way together without something between them, just squeeze your inner thighs together. Squeeze your thighs and your knees together. Holding and breathing, and see if you can peel your shoulder blades up a little bit higher. And then everybody rest down and take a position that feels good to you. I'm going to go into, in yoga, it's Baddha Konasana, bound angle here. The feet can be towards each other and the knees away. I'm letting my hands be a little support for the head, but my head is lower than my hips and my shoulders. You're going to get out of this position so you can just roll off to the side. I'm going to do a roll up to come up to sitting, almost like my least favorite Pilates exercise, neck pull. One of my least favorite. But you're going to have your feet away from you. So neck pull has the hands behind the head. I'm going to start that way. When I get about to ab prep, I'm going to reach forward and use the counterbalance of my arms forward to come all the way up. So you can model that or come off any other way that you might want to. Lie down on your back. You don't need your pillow. I don't think you need it at all anymore, so you can get rid of it. I'll make that executive decision since I do. Since I have that prerogative. You're going to get rid of your pillow completely. You're going to take your roll up to the ceiling and notice how I'm holding it. So it's mostly, I'm going to bring it back behind me and the weight's going to come into my palms. So right now it's wrapped with the thumbs on top. Find your neutral, set your position up, and then unwrap your thumbs so that the roll is on your palms. You're going to go as long as you can through your wrists without feeling like you're going to lose it. So instead of being like this, dropped back, fingernails towards the top of the mat as much as you can, You're gonna try to roll your wrists so that they're as long as they can be. And then the roll comes back behind you and it reaches back up. It's gonna be a little bit of a smaller movement than if we were using hand weights or than we're maybe familiar with without any weight or resistance. Because if we bring our arms straight up, we would obviously lose the roll. It almost makes us work harder though, because even at the top of this movement right there, we still are working to hold the weight of the roll up. If you want to work harder, bring your right leg up to tabletop and hold it there. If you want to work even harder, reach the right leg away as the roll goes overhead. We have 2 more here. We will do the other side because a lot of us probably chose to do the leg, but first you're gonna stick your fingers inside the roll or grab around the outside, whichever one makes more sense for how your roll is. And you're gonna do a little push up here. Bend your elbows wide and then push the roll back up towards the ceiling. Bend the elbows wide and push the roll up. Aim for very little retraction through the scapula, so you can probably feel them on the mat. They're not gonna pull together and push your chest up. You're gonna keep them really broad and flush to your rib cage. And yeah, the mat is light, but it's not completely insignificant. So if you're feeling like you want to work harder, bring your legs up to tabletop. And I'll give you another option if you're feeling like you want to work even harder. As the roll comes down, you're going to dip your toes to the floor and press back up. Feel free to stick with any of those options, of course. Keep the ribs inside the frame of the body as the legs go down. My roll probably especially feels like it's got some weight because my arms are a little sore today. I used to be a whitewater raft guide, but I haven't been a commercial raft guide for 20 years. I stopped in August 2001 when I went to undergrad. Dedicated myself to dancing instead. You're gonna do one more here. But I guided the New River Gorge yesterday, the whitewater section, for the first time in 20 years. And it went very, very well. My shoulder did well with it. We had a great trip. I had good rides through all the rapids. It was all safe, and I'm a little bit sore. I'm proud of myself for doing it. You can go ahead and bring the left leg right up to tabletop. And then if you took the option on the other side of extending the leg, you might want to take it on this side as well. The torso is your foundation here, literally like the foundation of a house. You want it to be stable and strong and grounded. 3 more. Last one. Put the roll underneath your head. It's going to prop you up a little bit awkwardly, like chin to the chest there. And then you're just going to roll your head side to side. When your face goes to one side, pull your chin down to that shoulder. And then look back just a little bit as you roll across the back of your head, and then pull the chin to the other shoulder. This is not max range of motion. Make it relatively small. And however you want to get there, you can scoot your body back or bring the roll towards the foot of the mat. You're going to bring the roll basically under your mid-ribs. You choose whether it's more towards the top of your shoulder blades or the bottom of your shoulder blades. And now you really get to go into extension here. Take a few breaths. Your legs could even be long and relaxed here. Taking a few breaths. Breaths would be a cue here too. So like just letting your chest be open here. And letting yourself sink into the roller. So you don't have to do anything here. Sometimes we still try to like force our body into a certain position, just drape over the roll. And then bring your feet back down on the mat, but keep them pretty far away from you. Draw your hips under, so you're going for a posterior pelvic tilt with your pelvis, like you're going into imprint. Draw your elbows up, nod your chin towards your chest, and come up into flexion. Bring your legs up to tabletop, and then you're just going to do a little bit of twist through your spine, coming back through center without dropping down into extension, and twist the other direction. Coming back through center, and twist. As you twist, you can do a little lift. So I'm twisting to the right, I'm lifting the left side a little bit higher, and back to center. Twist and lift, and center. Scooping the abdominals down. I'm gonna do about 4 more probably. If you're done, you're done. Rest your feet, come back into that extension if you'd like. I have 4 more still. Abdominals scoop down. 2 more. Squeezing the legs together if you're still going with me. And then maybe tucking into a little ball or just draping back into that extension, whichever one feels like a better idea for you right now. Roll towards me, probably onto your left side, and then give your shoulder and bottom rib cage there just a little bit of massage. You can have your head in your hand, just rolling over all those rotator cuff attachments. And because our ribs are a little elevated here, if you would prefer to have your head propped on your hand, you can do that. You could also come down onto your arm. But you're gonna keep this little lift. It's gonna work the obliques a little bit differently to have the ribs propped up on this angle. The bottom knee is in our kind of familiar tabletop position, or right angle, and the bottom leg is straight out from the hip. You're gonna lift the bottom leg up and back down, staying in parallel the whole time and keeping that lift of the bottom waistline, keeping that length of the top waistline. I like my hand here. It could be here for support. It could be down here, whatever you're feeling that way. Now as you come down, go into internal rotation and lift up through the heel. Now as you come down, go through external rotation. Lift up through the toes, internal, lift up through the heel, external, lift up through the toes, 2 more, like 1 more of each total. And then bend the knee and go into regular clamshell. When I bent my knee, I just naturally wanted to really relax there. Still find that length and integrity of symmetrical sides of your torso there. And clamshell. If you're feeling your superpowers today, want to do crazy clamshell, super clamshell, lift your feet and then lift your knee. Two and 1. Let that go. Take a very mellow little side stretch here. Take a few breaths, letting your ribs inflate and softening down to the roll. You're going to come up into a mermaid stance, so you can just push yourself right up into that. And then come down to your forearms. Adjust yourself so that your forearms can come down to the roll. And if you could only see my shoulder girdle, I'd look pretty much like I was in a forearm plank, but then I have those mermaid legs there. The arm that's closer to me is going to reach out to the side, and then you're going to lift it up towards the ceiling. And the same thing through the upper body. If you could only see my upper body, it might look like I'm in a side plank, or for you yogis, like Vashisthasana, like that side plank in yoga. And then you're going to rotate back down towards the floor. Rotate up towards the ceiling. Or rotate towards the front really. I feel like I'm rotating up towards the ceiling, but I'm not technically literally going all the way into a twist towards the ceiling. You face the floor and you face me. You face the floor And you face me. One more time like this. And then take both forearms down onto the roll. A little flex through your furthest away foot there, and lift and lower that leg. It's kind of like a clamshell variation. Your front body is still lifting as if you're in plank. Your thigh stays up and your leg circles. Your thigh and knee go down, and then your foot lift, internal rotation, and back down, and internal rotation. The head and the neck are part of the rest of the spine, so you find that length. Lifting the abdominals rather than sinking into the chest and the shoulders, wrapping your shoulder blades forward. And then bring yourself all the way up. Hand on the roll, softly bend the elbow, or soften the elbow rather, as you come into your side bend, and then give a little push up and over to the other side. So with control, it's a little bit of a push-up movement here, or tricep push-up, and then jump off of that arm. A few of you may have done this, like on the reformer, on the trampoline, when you're on your knees, and you jump off of the footboard or off of the trampoline. It reminds me of that right here, where you jump off of your arm. Two more. Strong wrist, jump off your arm. Last one. Jump. And we have all of that on the other side. First, that little shoulder rollout. We came from our back, and you're gonna sink into the roll and roll across that bottom side of your rib cage and your rotator cuff attachments. Your top leg is long, your bottom leg is bent up, your bottom waistline is lifted, your top waistline is long, waist side is long. Lift and lower, you're in parallel with your long leg. Front body draws to the back body. Make sure your head is back in space. Now we're going to add internal rotation, lift with your heel. Lower with your heel. Now lift with your toe. Just for your information, when I do external rotation, I don't get my heel all the way to the floor. If it's a little too far, it's a little outside of my range. So it draws down towards the floor, but it doesn't get all the way to the floor. You probably can't really see that super clearly on video, but it hovers right there. And then take yourself into this mellow, long stretch. Bring yourself up, face the roll, strong through your scapula. Arm towards knee comes out. Face front. Face the floor. Face front. Face the floor. Strong bottom shoulder. There is movement in this. It's my left scapula. There is a lot of movement in that scapula and in that shoulder, and it's also requiring a lot of stability work, drawing the scapula broad away from the spine so that I'm not sunk down into the shoulder like that. On both forearms, shoulder blades wrapped forward. Lift and lower your back leg. Back leg, top leg. however you want to call that one. And then circle it. Not going to be a big circle probably, just find some circular movement. Thigh comes down, lift your foot, internal rotation, and back down. Shoulder blades wrap towards the front of the body. So tempting to sink here, but let's make this full body work. Push all the way up. Soften the bottom elbow, and then you're gonna jump off of it and all the way to the other side. Soften the bottom elbow. Two more like this. You can probably go right from where you're set up. You may need to adjust your feet. You're just going to switch to the other side. So I did it the hard way first. You can also do it with your hands back behind you. I'm going to keep my hands off the floor and go through it this way, but feel free to have your hands behind your back. This way, down on the floor. You've done it both ways with me. So I feel like I have to round here a little bit and have my arms forward to counterbalance me. But then I'm dropping into more of that mermaid position with the hip drop down, lengthening my spine. It's hip mobility. It's a lot of movement through the hips, whether your arms are forward here or whether they're back. And then we're gonna stay to this side. So bring your hands down. You could also be on your forearms here, but I would suggest hands. So your hands are down. You're gonna lift the back leg. Sorry, it's a black on black, it's hard to see, but you're gonna lift your back leg, and then you're gonna use mostly waistline, less arms, to see if you can come all the way around and float in this kind of awkward, almost like you're going cross-legged position. And then you're gonna roll back onto this bottom hip and bring it down, floating the leg still. So another level of hip mobility here, coming to that external rotation. See if you can find equal weight on both sits bones. Internal rotation, shifting onto this bottom leg. And the mat is just there. The mat's a little bit, it's not super helpful, but it lifts the floor a little bit at this point. Do one more. And then you're gonna cross the leg you were just moving all the way over, sit up tall. Twist towards that leg. And that on the other side. Let's use the roll since we haven't used on the first side. You will feel more successful if you lean down a little bit towards the roll before you try to lift that leg up. Requiring lots of range of motion on both legs. Two more like this. This leg stays up. This knee is already high, so your left leg can slide long, most likely if you're mirroring me. Hug the knee into the chest, find the length through the spine, and then you can spiral towards your top knee. Let's go right into spine stretch and saw. The mat is a great place to get a little lift through the hips if you want here. Most of you do this without any lift, but if you've found that you have a hard time with it, go ahead and sit your butt on your roll. I am going to be right on my mat, but know that that's a fine option to have your hips up on the roll there. Feet are as wide as your mat, or as roughly as a traditional mat if you're not on one. You know, I'm usually on my rug at home. Arms out. As you exhale, scoop your abdominals back and reach your fingertips forward. And then lengthen up through your spine. So I'm thinking grounding down through my sits bones, lifting up through the top of my head like my head's a helium balloon. And then as far as imagery goes, I imagine that my arms are on a conveyor belt here. My arms are on a conveyor belt just being pulled forward, and then my abdominals and my pelvis is stable. It's stuck in one place. Stacking your spine up tall each time. Finding your exhale, riding those arms forward on the conveyor belt, letting the shoulders go along for the ride, but the hips and the abdominals stay back, grounded over the pelvis. Or at least the abdominals are grounded over the pelvis. One more. And right into saw. Take your feet and your arms, your feet a little bit wider and your arms quite a bit wider. Twist towards your left and then slice your pinky toe off with your pinky finger. So you're scooping your abs back, but you're reaching your pinky finger to your pinky toe or towards it, coming back to center and twist. So you might not get there, but you're reaching towards your pinky toe, top of the head in that direction as well, and then come up. The traditional choreography here has 3 little chops. So we chop 1, 2, 3, and the chop refers to sawing your pinky toe off. 3, 2, 1. 2 more. Last one. Put the roll long ways. I don't think that's a real word, but put it long ways. You're sitting on the floor. You have a little bit of space between your seat and the roll. Start with the knees bent and roll down over your roll. Let your head come down. Let your arms come all the way back. If it feels good, if it works for your shoulders, sweep your arms down by your sides. And then keep reaching towards the foot of the mat. Reach, reach, reach. Nudge your chin towards your chest. Come all the way up. And perhaps even lift your arms up as you come up nice and tall. Scoop your abdominals back. Come down onto the roll. Make sure that let your head come down, and then the arms drop and circle up. Oh, I reversed direction, but I kind of like that. Nudge your chin towards your chest. Reach forward and roll up. We'll go back to the first choreography here. So you're gonna roll down. Once your head comes down, your arms keep traveling back. This is the choreography I did first with the arms. The arms just slide down. They brush down to the sides. Keep reaching them forward towards the foot of the mat. Roll it back up. Find your length. Arms up overhead. Slide them down. So we're going to stick with that one more time. Arms overhead. Slide them down. Keep reaching as you nod and roll up. Now, if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, you're going to lift your right leg to tabletop as you go back through the roll down. So start with the scoop and then let your knee lift to tabletop. Keep it there, keep it there. Arms come up. We're just going to straight up reverse direction of the arms. So reach them towards the standing, nod the chin towards the chest, curl your torso in towards your knee, and then put the leg down to come all the way upright. You're going to switch sides. Scoop back, and when you have space there in your lap, the left thigh can lift. It finds tabletop and hold. Bring it all the way down. You're curling yourself towards your thigh. When you can't come up anymore without moving the thigh away from you, that's when you set the foot down and rise up. Feel free to rest. I'm going to get 2 more, 1 more each side. Thigh comes in, scooping back. And anytime we go asymmetrical through the weight load, whether it's arms or legs with the asymmetry, we are calling on our obliques more. Just challenging ourselves in a different way. Our obliques and certainly our back muscles as well. Soles of the feet together. Just easy fold it forward. You don't have to pull yourself there. You can do a little rocking side to side. You might choose to close your eyes here. Let your head go totally heavy. And come onto your stomach. Let's see if this is true. We're not going to use the roll at all, so you can totally set it to the side. Have your legs together here, unless it bothers your back, in which case have them wide and a little externally rotated. You're going to turn your cheek to one side, and you're going to see how it feels to interlace your fingers and just drop your elbows down. That might be a lot for the shoulders. If that's a lot for the shoulders, just uninterlace them and fingertips kind of on either side of your sacrum. So either one would be fine option for this. I'm just kind of adjusting my thigh meat there, my thigh muscles to get in the right spot. The legs are parallel and together or wide and externally rotated. You're going to lift. If your fingers are interlaced, you'll switch the grip and the knuckles pull back as you lift your chest and switching to the other side. If your hands are split, it's similar. You can just reach your fingertips down your thighs and then slide them back up, kind of brushing over your butt. Either way, this one calls on a bit more shoulder mobility. So whichever one works for you. Flipping your grip all the way there, squeezing your shoulder blades together, and then bringing it back in. Make sure you soften the elbows each time. Letting the squeeze of the shoulder blades and the pull of the knuckles or the fingertips down the legs towards the foot of the mat. That's going to help dry you up. One more time each side. And then if it works for you, it's a little bit awkward, but it can be helpful. You're just going to keep the backs of your fingers there on your back. You're going to let your feet open a little bit. If it doesn't work for you for any reason to have your hands here, just stack your hands underneath your face like we usually, underneath one's cheek like we often have here. You're going to lift one leg and let it come back down and switch sides. So it's super awkward to have them here, but your arms could be here too. With your hands on your back, your fingers on your back, you're just looking to feel minimal tone come into your back. It's required that your back muscles engage here, but what you're hoping doesn't happen, I'm trying to think of a positive way to say this and I'm failing, but what you're looking for, I'll say it that way, what you're looking for is minimal tone and relatively even. So the back works, but it's working to stabilize rather than to move your leg. And then you can also move your hands to your butt, and you want to feel kind of medium tone, not minimal, kind of medium tone come into the glute of the lifted leg. And if your arms are long enough and you reach down and feel your hamstring, they should be working a pretty significant amount there. So the main driver here, the muscular driver, is your hamstring and your butt. And then your back is mostly working to stabilize the torso. Another way to feel this would be to have your hands underneath your abdominals. And what you're looking for there is that you're not squishing your hands at all. You're not pushing your belly and your back down towards the mat. Your belly and your back stay still as your leg lifts at the thigh and the hip socket. And that can be enough, because that is plenty, right? Arms in goal post, your choice with your legs, wide and parallel, wide and externally rotated, narrow and parallel. You're going to lift your chest, lift your arms, reach your arms into a Y overhead. I'm just barely really hovered with my face and my chest, and that's plenty. And then elbows back to goal post and reach. This is also called W to Y. So there's the letter W, more or less, and the letter Y. And then from this Y, I'm going to go to T, and back to Y, and to T, and back to Y, and to T. Stack your hands underneath your face and turn your cheek to the other side. You've probably been looking towards me this whole time. I've been looking towards you. You're gonna turn your cheek to the other side. Get a quad stretch. If it works for you to do it on your belly here, prone, then grab one foot and bring it in. If that doesn't work for you for any reason, just turn onto your side. Remember, it's a thigh stretch, not a back cranker. So you want to be able to get into a position where you feel it mostly in your thigh, and you can kind of be in control of it from your arm and from your leg movement, and not having to stick your belly forward and go into a kind of compressed back position to find it. And then switch sides. Take your feet onto the roll. So you're going to have, you will want your arches on the roll. And just cup the roll as long as it's nice and tight. They'll just kind of cup it nicely. Go through a hip roll. Sink your abdominals down, tuck your hips under and roll it up. Find that long diagonal and then roll it back down. Do 2 more like that. You're going to stay up on this one. Staying up high with the hips, low with the ribs. Reach your arms up towards the ceiling. You're going to make circles on the ceiling. So the hips are high and still, the glutes are engaged. Just circle the arms and then reverse direction. And then reverse direction again and start to make your circles a little bit bigger. Reverse direction again with that same size circle. And then as you roll down, reach your arms overhead. Reach your arms even further, or let's say fingertips. Let's reach your fingertips even further away from your hips. So go really long through your side waist. Stay here for one more breath. And then bring your arms back down, and you can roll underneath your pelvis. Dropping the pelvis down on top of it and bringing your legs up to tabletop. This feels good to me right now. My legs are a little tight from all my weekend activity, which didn't include stretching, but lots of unusual activity for me. Lots of boating and camping. So bring the legs up and just point and flex the ankles. And then see if you can alternate. And then bend the knees and lengthen the knees. Can you do this without moving the thighs? So the thighs don't come in towards you as you bend, and they don't go away from you as you straighten. Do 2 more like that. We're going to add a bit of choreography to it. You're going to bend your knees. You're going to open your thighs away from each other. You're going to reach your legs long and away from you. They'll come into frog together. They lift up towards the ceiling parallel. Bend the knees. Open the knees. Lengthen. The heels meet first. You lift and parallel. Bend and parallel. Open. Reach long and away from you, meeting the heels together. Lift up. Bend and parallel. Reverse direction. Lift up and externally rotate, so the heels are together, toes are apart. Lower away. This is a little bit funky. As you bend, as you bend and open, or as you open, you bend. That's what I was trying to say. up, lower. As you open, you bend, and thighs together. One more time this direction. Lengthen, externally rotated, lower, open and bend, and then up. Hug your knees in, just let them drop in towards you. Bring your legs back up towards the ceiling, heels together, toes apart. You don't have to have the strongest flexion in your ankles, but just a gentle flexion. It helps me to find this movement, to have that gentle flexion, as if your feet are on the ceiling. You're gonna plie, you're gonna bend the knees. So it's a little different than frog. And then you're gonna press the ceiling away through the soles of the feet, lengthen through the back of the legs. Bend the knees wide, without collapsing at the hips, bend them wide, and then press away, press away, press away. See if you can get the legs all the way together. Bend and lengthen. Pull your inner thighs together. Work from your inseams and your inner thighs. Press away. This time the legs stay straight, point through the toes, and let the legs open. Work through the inseams, the inner thighs, and draw them back together, and then do it again. Really long through your legs. I love this one, feeling like I'm reaching my toes away from my hips as long as possible. And in fact, if you want to add the arms, go for it. Opening the arms and closing arms and legs. One more. And then bring your legs over and perhaps grab onto your toes, maybe your pants, maybe your ankles. Maybe just heel stack and use the top leg for a stretch. If you're holding onto your toes or your feet, it can feel nice to also bend and lengthen a few times. And let the feet come down. You can stay here in supported bridge. You can also try, this won't be great for everyone. This won't be like exactly what your body needs necessarily, but for some of you, it might feel really good to go with the roll under your low back and just let your tailbone and your hips drop off the far side. Some of you that will feel too extreme, but it's an option. And we are all going to beat with the roll underneath the right foot. So I have put it long ways perpendicular to my mat and then slid it off to the right so that only my right foot is on it. And it's just like we had for hip rolls, the arch is kind of cupping the roll. Squeeze your butt and lift your hips, and then lift your left leg. Put your left foot down and lower down. I call this climbing old rag, that big hike with all the rocks on top. So you take one big step and you take another big step. And then you step down and you step down. Up, up, down, down. 3 more like this. Stay up, extend the left leg, and little pulses up towards the ceiling. I don't feel like I'm in my highest hip lift, because if I wasn't, like what I felt like was my highest hip lift, my ribs would pop up. So you might find that that's the case for you too. And then let your hips come down. Let your left leg sweep out to the left. Just let it totally sweep. Push down into the roll a little bit. Reach your right arm in opposition and just go into a big, maybe slightly awkward stretch. What I'm feeling is not extreme stretch, but it feels like full body. I'm feeling a little bit of stretch through the front of my right hip flexor, through my right side as I really reach that right arm, and then maybe a little bit through the left leg here. You're going to sweep the left leg all the way up and over the right, and then twist, drop it to the other side. And if that feels too extreme in the twist, unwrap your legs and just let the knees drop one on top of the other. And then using your hands or your feet or however you can get it there, the roll is going to go over to the other side. Lift your hips and lift your right leg. Climb old rag. Lower and lower. Lift and lift. Lower and lower. Two more like this. Stay at the top, extend the right leg, little pulses up. Ribs heavy, left glute doing a whole lot of work. Reaching your right toes towards the ceiling so that the pelvis is level. Set your hips down, let your right leg go way out to the right, and then push, drop your left knee across the body and reach your left arm in opposition. Sweep the right leg all the way up and over and let it drop into a twist. And of course, feel free to stack rather than wrap up if that feels like just too deep, if it feels like more than you need. Come back to center with it, and let's get rid of the roll and unrolled. But yeah, you can get totally rid of the roll there. Take your feet almost as wide as a traditional mat and just go side to side with the knees. You know I love this one. It's nice and gentle with that twist. Next time your knees drop towards me, pause, keep them towards me. The arm that's away from me is going to sweep overhead, and it's going to bring you all the way over onto your side, and then you're just going to reverse that all the way back onto your back. Drop the knees to the other side. Back arm sweeps around overhead. You're on your side. Top arm reaches overhead, and it brings you back onto your back. Side and around. Back. One more. Bring your right knee into tabletop. Take your right hand against your right thigh and give it a little push. Get that psoas active. A few ways to do variations on this. One would be to straighten the left leg, and it will feel a little bit more challenging right there. You could also lift the leg to tabletop. I'm going to stick, this version feels right to me tonight, so keeping the leg down. So tabletop, knee bent, foot on the floor, or leg long. This top leg, you're just going to go a little externally rotated with it. This top leg, you're going to go a little internally rotated with it. This top leg, you're going to hug it in tight and just shift it a little bit side to side. Before you switch sides, get a nice glute stretch, piriformis stretch, hip rotator stretch. My cue for this, I didn't say it tonight, but my cue is almost always ankle across thigh. But notice if you go right at your ankle joint, then your ankle does this big funny eversion, or supination. I'm not sure if that's eversion, but it does this whole thing, and most of the brunt of the force of pulling your leg in comes right into the ankle joint, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you're dismissing some of the good glute potential here. So go right above. The thigh is going to cross right above, like closer to the knee, those malleoli, those ankle bones. In other words, lower shin bone across the thigh, not ankle across the thigh. And then other side, you're going to gently push your thigh into your hand. And your other options for your right leg, if you want to take a different option, it would either be tabletop, or the one that I did on the first side and I'm going to do on this side is just lengthening that leg. But you can do the first option too, just the way that I demonstrated. A little external rotation of this top leg and a little internal rotation. You have to adjust where your hand's at a bit each time. And then pull that knee in and just slide the thigh a little bit side to side. Cross the lower shin bone, not the ankle joint, lower shin bone over the opposite thigh for your glute. And all things back and side of the hip. Come up to sitting. You're going to take a straddle stretch, however wide your legs want to go here, or maybe skip it if this feels too extreme, not good for you. Your arms are out and you're going to go into a side bend. Toes keep pointing up towards the ceiling. Coming up and over the top and finding the other side. And up to the top and down into center. Believe it or not, that's my stretch. And this might be your stretch. Nose on the floor might be your stretch. But this is getting it today. I'm also very gentle in this hamstring. All right, thank you.